a little bit about me. For those of you that weren't here during the brief intro, my name is Nika. So I've kind of found out for my love of journalism when I was at uni in America, and that's where I started study journalism. So I started in, when did I start now? 2014, and I graduated in 2018. And yeah, I kind of knew right away that this was something that I really wanted to do. And yeah, after graduation, I came back to the UK and got my first job at The Sun as a digital reporter. And it was kind of my first big jump into tabloid journalism. I really didn't know fully what I was getting into, but it was a great time working at The Sun. And then that's kind of when, like a year and a half in, I got offered a job at The Mirror, kind of more in entertainment journalism, and that's something I really enjoyed. And I was there for about a year and a half as well. And at my current job now, which is an American website called VT, I'm the current editor there. And yeah, I've been there for about a year now, but like I mentioned at the beginning, I got offered a really exciting new job as the UK editor for the New York Post, which I start next month. And yeah, I guess I'm here to kind of talk about the job application process once you found a job that you really want to apply for, kind of what to know, helpful tips and tricks. I guess I'll start off with a brief format of what I'm going to be covering today, just so you know what you've gotten yourself into now. So I'll start by covering CVs, resumes, if you call them that, and then your cover letters, which are the unsung heroes. And then we're going to move on to the really topic of money and salary negotiations and kind of pay rises and that uncomfortable stuff. And then I'll touch on studying and working in the US, if that's, you know, something you're considering or maybe want to explore that avenue in the future. So with that being said, let's kick it off. Obviously, I'm sure everyone knows how important CVs are in our day and age. You know, everyone has one, but you need something that's going to make you stand out. And I think this is where many people, especially in journalism, they fall short during that application process. What I've come to learn, certainly did not know this at the beginning, is that most of CVs are not looked at by people. They're passed through a thing called ATS filters. I had no clue what on earth this was. I was like, why is no one interviewing me? Why am I not getting this job? Getting really angry because I thought my CV was all right. It was all right. So I kind of just did some research and I figured that, you know, no one's actually reading it. So the key to kind of avoid that is to have the exact keywords that are listed in the job spec that you are applying for. And yes, this is such like a drag. You're going to have to edit every single CV you send out, like basically crafting it to that specific job. But I promise you, you will see a difference. So I've just made some notes. I'm going to read off because my memory is not that good. So your CV should be focusing on these items. So a strong and professional summary at the top, highlighting any specific qualifications such as your NCTJ qualification, your basically what you're qualified in. Some people have other journalism qualifications. You need to use a clear layout. I mean, as an editor now, I have people apply for roles, and this is me in no way shaming them, but you need to have a clear CV, because if you've got a CV that is covered in word art and you're telling me you like tie-dyeing and you're telling me you enjoy time with friends, I'm so happy for you, but I can't help you because I do not have all day to be sitting around listening, reading to what you like to do on the weekend. I'm sure it's fun, I'm sure it's great, but you really need to get down to the point as soon as possible, because your CV only needs to be one page and it cannot be longer than that. And I mean, it can be, but no one's going to be looking at that second page, I can promise you now. And this is a really important thing. So once your CV passes through the ATS filter, it's going to get looked at by someone for 5 to 7 seconds. So you better make sure that your best qualifications, that your experience is clear cut, listed with bullet points. It has to be really clear. That's all I'm going to stress, because you would not believe the some CVs I've seen. Honestly, yeah. Anyway, continuing. So to be a journalist in the UK, I don't know if this is kind of basic stuff, but I'm going to say it anyway, because, you know, these are some things that are often overlooked. So you need an NCTJ qualification, which, you know, if you don't have that, that's definitely something you need to get if you want to work for nationals. If you don't have that, but you did go to university and study, you know, a BA or an MA degree in journalism or something related in that field, you don't need to worry about an NCTJ, I don't think, for the most part. I mean, I don't have one, and so far it's been okay. So I've made like a little list of what your CV should look like. I will definitely share these notes out with everyone after this talk, so you kind of have I guess some notes on this if you need. But basically, this is how I like to structure my CV. So your name at the very top, in the middle, quite, you know, big, so, you know, your name is not forgotten. The city you're in, your phone number, and your email just under that. Your professional summary, please don't make it long, 1 to 2 sentences maximum, because like I said, 5 to 7 seconds is going to get looked at. And then your qualifications, so, you know, your NCTJ or whatever, and, you know, your publishing experience if you have some, what you're committed to, and then your work history. This one's important because this is where the eye tends to go first. So your experience should be position, company, what city it was in, the month and the year you started to the month and the year that you finished, or present if you're still at that position. I would say no more than 5 bullet points per, you know, job experience. So for example, if I was to write bullet points about my position at the Sun, no more than 5. But to be honest, I'd top it at 4, because like I said, everyone's just going to be glancing at them. And also, this is quite a big one as well, not to write the basics on your skills, such as, you know, Adobe Suite, Microsoft Office. Listen, everyone has this on their CV, and I'm not saying it's bad to have it, it's great, but what's going to make you stand out is if you don't have the same exact thing as the person next to you, because, you know, you want something else. You want something like, again, this is extra work, but there are free courses on HTML, and you're never going to need this ever. You're never going to need to know coding or HTML, but boy, does it help if you have it on your skills. So I took a quick HTML course, completely free online, put that as my skill. And already that's kind of setting me apart from the person next to me who has, you know, Adobe Suite, Microsoft Office, and so on. So, you know, it's definitely something to consider. But like I said, there's nothing wrong with having Adobe Suite, Microsoft Office on, because people use that. So it's good to have that. Moving on, the key skills section at the bottom, which on your CV, which you're going to have, it should include specific media, technical, and soft skills. So what I mean by that is, it could be experiencing things such as, you know, audio, visual, or post-production applications, or script writing expertise. Maybe you've had some experience in those fields. Definitely worth mentioning that in your skills, because that shows, you know, you've done other stuff rather than just, you know, browse on Microsoft Office, you know. God, it sounds like I have something against Microsoft Office. I don't. Then you need to read the job description for your role, like I said, and pick out the key words from that job spec and copy them and paste them into your CV. So for example, if they're like, we need someone to demonstrate team leading skills, well, your past experience could be like, demonstrated team leading skills by doing blah, 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 blah. So that already passes you through the filter if you match the language a little bit. And what else? Yes, it goes without saying that your CV should look professional and error-free. This is a big one, because this is something that is so obvious that it's often not mentioned. So people just forget to proofread and check their CVs for spellings and so on. please do it. Yeah, it's so important. I've been guilty of it too. Definitely. This is all me learning from my past mistakes. So definitely do that. And then I always like to have an achievement section at the bottom, not too big, but something to show what you're proud of. Because, at the end of the day, applying for a job is basically, telling the hiring manager why they should pick you. And so for the achievements, I would say it's not what we do that's important, it's how well we did it. So employers want to see evidence of you performing well in your past skills, and they want to see transferable skills. So what you've done at past companies that can benefit their company now. So like I mentioned, the language is really important, using the same kind of wording as the job spec. Can't stress that enough. Also, yes, you need to, if you've visited any press awards, or, you've won any awards or anything like that, absolutely mention it. It shows that you're not afraid of being, speaking in public, attending, high profile events and so on. And as a journalist, obviously that's really, really important. Yeah. And then I actually found this thing yesterday that I think is going to be really interesting to note. It's a really boring job title, but this guy showed you how you can make it sound very impressive. So for example, not a job title, sorry, a skill. So this one is just scheduling meetings, basically. So he turned that into coordinated complex calendars for 20 plus staff and managers, overseeing meeting logistics to ensure adequate time to discuss critical business decisions. I mean, doesn't that just blow you away? And then there's another one, more for editors, I guess, but managed a team. And he turned that into oversee strategy and workflow for a team of 6, leveraging a consistent approach to relationship building, recognition, and communication to generate continuously improving performance. So I'm pretty impressed. That's definitely something to, keep an eye on when, you're crafting your CV. If you do have any questions about CVs, jot them down. I'll answer all questions at the end. For now, I'm going to move on to cover letters. And a lot of people hate them, myself included, because I just simply, never saw the point in them. And it's such an outdated job application practice, in my opinion. But, it's the world we live in. So, you've got to have that in your arsenal. So this is an interesting one as well, similar to the 5 to 7 seconds on a CV. Your cover letter is not going to be read word for word. It's going to be skimmed. This is why it's important. Your cover letter reflects the stuff in your CV. So maybe the things that they might not have picked up on in your CV, they're going to pick up on in your cover letter. I found this quite interesting. 45% of job seekers skip the cover letter writing process. So if you have a cover letter, you've beaten 45% of, applicants. I mean, just by simply having a cover letter, not even having a good one, you've already beaten out all these people, because let's face it, it's extra time, it's effort writing a cover letter. I'm not saying it's like a thesis paper, but it is extra effort, especially when you've already gone through your application process and then they want you to attach your cover letter. And it's just like, I've definitely had moments where I was like, oh, do you know what? Forget about it. Like, not today. I can't have this. But listen, this is so important. Like I said, this is literally all from my experience as well. I've learned the hard way how important cover letters are. And now I'm like, I am absolutely an activist for them. So especially in entry-level jobs, where many candidates have similar qualifications, recruiters use cover letters to distinguish, comparable candidates, basically. So if you're applying for a job and it's an entry level, so either, like a junior reporter writer, obviously, the people that are going to be applying alongside you might have similar experiences on their CV, which, can look a bit repetitive to the recruiter, sieving through so many CVs and cover letters. So what you need to do in yours to make sure you stand out is you need to not let it surpass 1 page. I mean this, because if your cover letter is like over a page, it looks tedious without even having read it. You want it to be snappy. You want it to be about the facts. Why are you good for this? Why should they hire you? And so on. So do not let it go over a page. I like this. Think of your cover letter as a magnifying glass to your CV. So obviously your CV has a lot of different things of what you've done, of what where you've worked and so on. Think of a cover letter as you zooming in on one aspect of it and explaining, in more detail, what was done in that role and so on. So basically, this is how I would format my cover letter. I would begin with a personal greeting. I would research whoever the hiring manager is. Instead of just writing "Dear hiring manager" or "To whom it may concern," I would figure out who is, the hiring manager. There's always one on the recruiting team. I would make it more personal. I would say "Dear" and their name, so-and-so. And then I'd start off with a really strong lead paragraph. You want to grip them straight away, because they're not going to be reading every word. So you want to show them why they need to spend that extra few seconds and actually read what you're all about. So I'd introduce myself and then name the position that you're targeting, outline your relevant experience, show that you're the perfect candidate, because it's not implied. Just because you're applying for a job, it does not mean you're trying to show them that you're the perfect candidate. Some people apply for jobs just to apply for them, just to feel better that they've done something today and that they've applied for a job. No, if you actually want a job, you need to make it clear that you really, really want it. You need to include a few links to your relevant writing samples. I mean, nowadays, some applications have, on the application process, they have a section for that, so you don't need to worry about that. But if they don't, I would always say in your cover letter, make sure it's a PDF format where it's clickable with the links, because that would really, really help, I think. Next is, where was I? Yes, so include, if you've won awards or professional accomplishments, list them. Again, it doesn't matter if you've listed them already on the CV. Does not show off as bragging. It's just you reminding them that, you're good at what you do. Then explain why you want the position. This one is really, really important, because like I said, it's not implied. Make it clear that you're not desperate for this job, because if you come off like you're begging, they are going to instantly, be on the back foot, like, oh, she really wants this. So make it clear that you're not desperate. You got to make them feel special, though. Why are you applying for this job? We'll just say, I've been an avid reader of this company or this publication for so long, of this section, blah, blah, blah. Make them feel, like they're special. And if, that publication has won awards, say, I this and that, and I know that you won an award in 2018 and so on, blah, blah, blah. So, and this is all Googleable. Yeah, you can always research this on Google. It's not, you don't have to like start digging in archives. A quick Google search will help you. Then you can refer to some of their past articles that you've found inspiring. So you don't have to do this in a cover letter. Like I said, no one's really going to be diving into what you really enjoyed from them, but if you do mention one particular article that stood out to you, I mean, I'm sure that's going to make them feel special. And then you want them to know that you're likely to stay for some time and not jump ship to whenever a new opportunity comes around. So you're in it for the long run, and make it sound like that. Don't say, oh, I just need a job for a few months, to be honest with you, like times are tough. Don't say that. Say, you've been after this position for a while and you're so happy it's finally opened up, and you think you're the perfect candidate. So, and you want to end the cover letter with an offer and a call to action. So what I mean by that is, it's not about your personal benefit, it's for the employer's gain. So emphasize that your expertise can help the company, that, don't sort of be like, you need me, I don't need you. Make it a 50-50 thing. You can I can help you, you can help me, sort of thing. And then ask for a meeting or call to discuss what you can bring to the table. So I typically like to finish my cover letter off with, I don't actually remember, but it's something like, thank you for your consideration. I look forward to hearing from you. These are my contact details, and kind of just list your phone number, your email, and yeah, I think, and the signature at the bottom. That's an old-fashioned thing, but some, recruiters really do appreciate that. So yeah, if you have any questions about cover letters, keep them in mind. I will be answering questions in a bit. But now we're moving on to the very uncomfortable topic of money. I have found this topic to be dreaded, especially when you are the one asking for, a pay rise or a negotiation process after you've been offered a job. It's a very uncomfortable, awkward thing, but it has to be done. I mean, you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because it's not going away anywhere. You're going to have to learn how to approach these kind of conversations and how to handle them delicately and not come off like you're begging, because that's a very important aspect of it. So I guess what I'm going to be covering first is negotiating salary after being offered a new job. So, you're applying for this entry-level job, you really want it, you think you'd be good at it, fantastic. They're offering you the job. You've beaten out all these applicants, but that pay, you've done your research. It's a little below what, you're expecting. And yeah, you're an entry-level candidate, which means, you might be thinking, oh, well, I'm just lucky to be considered. But pump your brakes, because you can still negotiate even at an entry-level position. Basically, this isn't just like you see a figure, a number, and you're like, oh no, let's talk about this. That's not how it goes. So you see the salary that they're offering you. You need to build your case. So you need to start researching that exact position in this field of work. What are other companies paying? There are websites that cover this stuff, that you can easily search for online. Start making notes when you're doing your research. Once you receive your salary offer, don't just counter offer it with a higher number, because if you do it that carelessly, your chances are you're going to get shut down, and that the starting salary is what you're going to end up with, and you don't want that. So you've got to do your research, and you've got to find numbers and statistics that are going to support, the higher pay that you're asking. You'll be more successful if you explain why you feel you deserve more simply than just by demanding it. You need to highlight your strengths and detail all the extras the company would get with someone with your track record. So for example, what I like to do, this sounds very tedious, but it has come to my rescue a few times. You're going to keep a note of everything you've done for the company that is outside of your job spec. Yes, the odd favor here and there obviously isn't going to make the list, but I'm talking like an actual project, that you've been asked to help with, that's actually taken some time, and you've been happy to help, but it's definitely something worth noting, because the company benefited from that, but you of course have not. But I guess that's more, we'll get to that, but yeah. So you need to factor in perks and benefits of the company. Salary negotiations often include some give and takes. So for example, if you get offered a job and you don't like the salary, but they're offering you a free gym membership, because companies do that, free gym membership, free, dental healthcare, I would say take it, because that would add up to a lot more than any kind of salary you can negotiate for. So always keep the perks in mind. Absolutely worth keeping that in mind. Also, if the company is offering, extra vacation days, holiday days, flexible hours, and like a work from home schedule, if they're just like a nice company, you you kind of don't want to just throw that away just because of, you could be getting like $1,000 more, this is such an important thing. And so, hard to come by these days, like a company that genuinely, cares for its employees. And, if you find a company that, is offering a few holiday days, or they offer a mental health day or free therapy, or, like these kind of perks, honestly, I would say, unless your salary is very low, I would say absolutely accept it. That would be my own advice. But obviously it just depends on how much lower the salary is than what the market is offering. So this is an important one. You've got to practice your delivery before you speak to the recruiters about your salary. If you've decided, yes, I need to be paid higher for this, get like a friend or a family member, sit them down in front of you and ask them to pretend to be the recruiter, and kind of just play it out with them. Like, make them ask you tough questions, like, why do you deserve that amount? Why do you think, this position, needs to be paid that much, etc. So, you kind of answer those questions there in person. But the most important thing that I can say, if you take away anything, is please do not beg, because that is an instant, like, you're going to repel them and you're going to get a rejection, because that you cannot beg. You need to, and you can't say, oh, I really need this just because it's kind of a rough time, for me financially. Rent's high these days, no, they're not going to care. You have to be realistic here, keep it professional. Don't say, oh, like, I don't know, Rihanna has new makeup out, that would be mine. Don't say that. Next is get everything in writing. This is such an important one, because words are just that. If you're talking with a recruiter and you do, come to an agreement of a higher salary, you absolutely need to get them to write this down, because you don't have proof that they've agreed to it if it's not in an email or in a document. So this is absolutely something you really need to get on top of when, and you're in that situation. Once you settle it, ask them for a written documentation or an email. So technically how that usually tends to go is, thank you so much, I really appreciate that. Is there any way I can get you to send me an email with what we've just agreed on, just so I have it in writing for my records, please? They're obviously going to say yes, absolutely. You await that, and then that way you've already got it as leverage should anything happen in the future. And then besides the salary amount, it should include any special arrangements such as bonus or allowance. So if you're part of so some companies have a bonus scheme. Well, many I think do. So if you reach a monthly target, you get entered into their bonus scheme. So make sure you have that in writing as well, because if your team is getting bonuses and you're like, oh, where's mine? They can always be like, show us where we offered you a bonus scheme. But if you have it in writing, you'll be like, here it is. Cool. So now we are negotiating pay rises. I find this one scarier than the other one, just because this is at your current job. So whatever relationship you've established with your manager or editor or boss, it comes to the test now, because you're about to ask them for some more money. Negotiating a salary increase is like one of those things that makes you feel uncomfortable before you do it. Absolutely, you'll have anxiety over it. That's just natural, completely natural. You're about to go into a room or in a Zoom meeting and ask someone you work with every single day for more money because you're unhappy with the amount you're getting. That's gonna trigger some sort of feeling or emotion in you. But don't worry, this is so natural, so normal. Everyone has gone through it. It's something that's a part of any job, any field, not even journalism. But you shouldn't back away from this conversation just because it's uncomfortable. This is so important. And here are some really good tips, to keep in mind when you do face that situation. So much like the salary negotiations, you should do your research before this. You need to, see what is the salary, what's the pay like for the same job at other companies, what the market is like. In journalism, journalism world is tiny, and you're going to run into people all the time, and you're going to build friendships. That's the one thing that I'm really grateful for, so far. Is, well, not the one thing, I'm grateful for other things too, but this is like a big one, like, building friendships with people who are in the same field of work as you. And that's just so exciting. You guys are navigating, this together. And I guess what I'm kind of trying to say is, when you build that friendship with someone, who works for a different publication or so, and you get comfortable enough to, talk about your current jobs and your salaries and stuff, you can always just kind of, I know in my case anyway, you can always just bounce off of each other and ask how much, they're getting, how much you're supposed to get, and kind of help each other, build each other up in that way. I know that's been my experience, and maybe I'm one of the lucky ones, but I do know that there are a lot of good people out there in journalism. So it should definitely be an easy thing to do, to make some friends in journalism. So you have to arrange a meeting in advance with your manager or editor, and let them know that the meeting is going to be about you asking for a pay rise. Because if you're going to lead them into it blind, they don't like that. Editors do not like surprises. Simple as. They like to be on top of everything. They like to, you need to make them feel like they know about anything, about everything. You have to, you just have to let them know and give them a heads up. Yeah, if you don't, it's just going to be a tense situation. No one likes that. And I recommend sending a message by email in advance, that you're going to lead them into that meeting, about a pay rise, because, in a professional and friendly tone, because that's also, you've got that in writing, that if they're ever like, oh, we actually never had a meeting about pay rise, well, you could be like, on March the 3rd, I sent you an email. So yeah, and then you're gonna do the same thing you would do with the salary negotiation. You're gonna sit down with your friend or family member or whoever and just play it out with them. Yes, so this is where it goes. Approach the meeting in the right way. You have to see things from the company's perspective. Like I said, you cannot bring personal stuff into this. You have to keep it professional. It's so important. And it's so easy to go down the personal route, just because when you're having a conversation with someone, like your manager or your editor, that someone very well and you speak to every day, especially if it's someone you have a really good working relationship with, it's hard not to go down the personal route. But you have to stay focused and stay professional, because it's not going to play in your favor if you go into the personals about it. And then you need to appreciate the power of silence. This is something that I learned very, very recently. I get nervous when it's silent, and I fill those silences up with just random stuff. I just start talking and I can't stop. And it's so bad. And I'm sure I'm not the only one that does it, but you need to just take a step back when you've said everything you want to say, make them uncomfortable with your silence. That will have them talking and blabbering, and is more likely, to get you what you want. So that's definitely my advice. And I would follow that meeting up with an email again. So you're going to leave a paper trail, every time these conversations are had. And you're going to say, regardless of whatever has been discussed in the meeting, you're going to thank them for their time and agree, to what you're going to put what you've agreed to in writing. So, you have that paper trail. And yeah, everyone is going to be held accountable for in that step. And then I also wanted to read you some of these bullet points. Never accept the first offer. And well, it says never here. I would say most of the time, but sometimes it's worth accepting the first offer. I mean, if your boss is really like, look, there's literally nothing we can do, this is the highest I could do, take it. But if, in some cases when they're, just playing it, and they give you a first offer, you could be like, oh, thank you very much, I'll take that into consideration and I'll let you know. And then that's how those talks continue. If you can always counter offer it, and if they say no, you can always go back to that first offer. They're not going to take the first offer off the table just because you didn't agree to it the first time around. So that's worth keeping in mind. And always avoid giving your number first. So if you want a pay rise, if they ask you how much you want, don't give them a number. Say, well, I've done my research and I just want to know the budget that you have for this role, because obviously, right now I'm getting paid this, but I just wanted to know in terms of growth what your budget is. That puts them, kind of in control of the conversation, because you've just set the tone and now they're going to have to explain to you what you can be expecting. And then never give ultimatums. This is a big one too. Don't be like, oh, if I'm not getting pay rise, I'm leaving. Because they're going to be like, okay, bye. Like, don't do that. You've got to be professional about this. And you're actually expected to negotiate here. I know it might not be like a very well-known fact, but yeah, you're going to be expected to do your research and to come back with statistics and, and numbers and what you've actually done for the company. And you're going to be, expected to negotiate and not accept the first offer. So it's completely natural, it's completely normal. You're not being stingy. You're not, you're just telling them your worth, basically. And yeah, I think, this is a last one, I think. Always give specific numbers if not, obviously don't give your numbers at the beginning, but if it's come to that time in the conversation where, you have to give a figure in, instead of, for example, £50,000, give them £55,300. That is accurate, that's specific, that's going to throw them off much more than if it's 50k, because they can always just bring it down 5k or so on. But if it's got a 300 in there, or like a £320, that's going to be tricky for them. So always throw them in a loop by doing that. Okay, I hope that all makes sense. Obviously, like I said, questions at the end, I'm more than happy to answer. And then the last kind of two kind of sections I wanted to quickly cover. These are not as long as the other ones, but obviously I studied in the US, so I have experience kind of in journalism in America and the UK, and kind of the differences between the two. I studied in Washington, DC. So it was obviously very, very different, learning about journalism and what it entails in the States to when I came back to the UK. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of tell you the biggest differences if working or studying in the US is something you would consider doing in your professional career later down the line, because America has some great publications and it's always looking for journalists to come from overseas and so on. So I definitely think it's worth exploring that avenue should you be lucky enough to be considered. But yeah, so the biggest differences that I found are the libel and defamation laws. So when you take media law, also, sorry if this sounds like I'm explaining something very, very basic. I'd rather explain it just so everyone is on the same page. But libel and defamation laws are very different. So, for example, people are more likely to sue other people in the UK for defamation or libel than they are in America. This kind of impacts the way you write stories in the UK a lot more than it does when you're in America. Basically, they're more likely to sue here in the UK because they're more likely to win. And that's because UK laws are much stricter than they are in the US. So in the US, in order to prove libel or defamation, you need to basically say that they determined to publish that article with malice. That's not the case here in the UK. Also in the US, you cannot pay for stories. So I remember when I worked at The Sun here in the UK, we paid for stories all the time because that's the norm in the UK. It's completely normal. If you have a story to tell, you get paid for it, you get reimbursed for it, and so on. In America, that's a very big no. So that definitely makes it harder to find stories or like exclusives you're writing about. But it's not impossible. So that's that. And then, yeah, just quickly on studying journalism in the US, if that's something you wanted to consider, there's kind of two ways to go about it. You could either do an associate degree or a bachelor's degree. So I did a bachelor's degree. And for that, you need at least 5 GCSEs and 2 A levels, as well as a US exam, such as the SATs or the ACT exam. And yeah, you'll need you need to make sure that you have transferable subjects in your GCSEs and A levels, but all that boring stuff, it can be found online, or you could I'll give my email to Chani and I'm sure she can send that round. But yeah, guys, I think that should cover what I had in store for today, but I'm more than happy to answer any questions you guys have. So Chani, take it away.
Yeah, so if you have any other questions, anyone has any other questions while we're chatting through this first one, just leave them in the chat and I'll read them out. But we've had one so far from Shannon. I have several internships in social media marketing and communications, but also freelance journalism and student journalism experience. To keep it to one page, should I only include my journalism experience on my CV?
This completely depends on the role you're applying for. If you're applying for a journalism job, absolutely just keep the journalism positions on your CV. If it's kind of a multimedia job that you're applying for, mix and match the best ones out of the bunch, I would say. It's good to show versatility. It's good to show that, you know, you've tried new things and other things. And definitely it just depends. I guess that's my best answer to you. It just depends on what the job you're applying for, the field of work it is.
That is a really good point. I had to do the same things because I've been working for a while now. I have some experience that just, it's not worth taking up the space when I could fill it with something that is more interesting and more relevant to the role.
Yeah.
We've had another question come in. What's the most common mistake you've seen on CVs or a mistake you made on your own CVs in the past?
That's a good one. I've made a lot of mistakes on CVs. We won't have enough time to cover all of them, but I guess the kind of the main one that I've spotted, and that I've certainly been guilty of myself, is, I guess, typos. It's such like a basic thing, like I mentioned, but it's so important to proofread every single word you write on your CV, because it could be the most easiest word. I remember, oh my gosh, I will never get over this. It was my CV. Everything was, you know, everything looked fine, but the word "and" had like a stupid B in it, and I still get nightmares. But yeah, just keep in mind those little things that you might think are boring and self-explanatory, because I can assure you, you'll find an error in there somewhere.
It's definitely actually proofreading as well, not just looking out for the red squiggle, because sometimes, like, although you might have spelt the word right, it might just not be the word that you meant to type. It happens to me all the time.
I think I like stupidly even added it to my dictionary, so it didn't even
pop
up in red. Honestly, yeah. Someone was after me that day.
It is very stressful. We've had another question in from Shannon. I have a master's from Warwick in international relations politics. I'd met some alumni who broke into the journalism industry, but I feel like it's quite difficult competing with those who have a journalism master's when Shannon tries to get internships and stuff. Should she consider getting an NCTJ?
Yes, and I'll tell you why. I think your qualification, your degree is amazing, and something that is very, you know, you may not know it or not, but it's something that's definitely valuable in journalism. So once you get into that field, you know, your knowledge of international politics, I think you said, that's really going to help you. But I think you need an NCTJ just to get to that point, to get you into that interview room. I think you need that. And I know that is such a long process to embark on, just to get noticed, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. I know that some companies actually sponsor this. Might be worth researching which ones that do, but it could be a good idea to accept a somewhat of a lower salary for a job at one of those companies, knowing that they're actually going to sponsor your NCTJ. That way, you know, best of both worlds, really. They'll give you time to, you know, do the courses and they'll pay for it. So I definitely think that's worth researching for sure.
Those schemes are great. And I think ITV, ITN maybe has one, but yeah, there are so many like really reputable places that will offer that.
The tabloids offer it too. I know The Sun and The Mirror do. So that's also good to keep in mind.
Really great options. We've had a follow-up question. When applying to entry-level jobs post uni or masters, what kind of experience helps you stand out the most?
Oh, that's a good question. Can you hear me? I think
Sorry, I was muted. Yeah,
no.
you're frozen, but we can still hear you.
I don't know what's going on. Let me see. Let's have a look. Sorry about this. It's just Virgin Media playing games.
It's always the way.
That time of the evening. Right, here we go. Sorry, could you repeat the question for me, please?
Yeah, sure. So when you're applying to entry-level jobs, what kind of experience helps you stand out the most?
Okay, that's a great one. So internships is my biggest thing for you. And those include unpaid internships. And I know they sound horrific, but I actually went down that route. I did some work experience at the Times. I did some work experience at the Guardian. And I simply got them by emailing them. I literally said, look, I'm a recent graduate, or, you know, I'm about to graduate, or so on, or I'm looking for an entry-level job and I want to get experience. They're going to be helpful. They are. I mean, some places, you know, are going to say, oh, we don't have any opportunities available at the moment. But, you know, you will, if you email enough places, one of them will come back to you. Also, I think this is overlooked at a lot, but, you know, your local news that you have is a great place or way, you know, to get experience. There's so much out there that you can, you know, learn. They don't have to be from nationals, you know, they could literally be your local paper or your local news outlet or so on. And they always have, you know, have internships or need people, you know, to help out. So I definitely think, you know, you need to, especially for entry-level jobs, you need to show your initiative before and, you know, get some experiences on that CV. They're not necessarily going to be paid, but you need to show them that, you know, you're not just sitting at home twiddling your thumbs and just applying. You're going to, you know, go the extra mile. I think that's really going to help you.
I think that's such great advice for people who live outside of London as well about local publications, because it just saves so many different expenses, and the commute also would be so much nicer.
Absolutely. Yeah, completely.
We've had another question. I generally used a standardized CV along with a tailored cover letter when I apply for a job. Given the CVs just passed through the ATS system, is it worth switching it around with a tailored CV and a standard cover letter rather than like what they're doing at the moment?
Yes, completely. That's exactly how I do it. Now, saying that, obviously, I don't just have a standard CV that I send to every single employer. That's not how it works. I definitely tailor it to some extent, but CVs, I would say, are genuinely, you know, they keep the keywords in mind for sure when applying for jobs. Obviously you want to, you know, translate those keywords into your cover letter. So you're going to have to tailor your cover letter to some extent anyway, but I would definitely say your main emphasis should be on your CV, because that is the thing that, you know, is going to get you noticed.
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to ask a question of my own now, just on the behalf of a few kind of international aspiring journalists, because I get a few questions from people who have studied journalism abroad wondering about how that kind of translates to journalism in the UK. So I was wondering if you had any difficulties or no difficulties at all where you'd studied in the States and then come back to England and were applying for jobs. Did you have any weird questions about, like, I don't know, if they were like unsure that you'd had the kind of training that would allow you to be a proper journalist here? Obviously, like, I don't know, because I studied here.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Yes, I have had a lot of raised eyebrows when I came over and got a job at the Sun. I think the main thing about it was that I didn't have an NCTJ, which kind of threw people off a bit. It's definitely becoming less of a thing now. I think, you know, if you have a university degree for journalism, I think, you know, it's accepted now more so than I think it was when I started out a couple of years back. But yeah, for sure. I mean, it was even different for me in terms of writing, because in the US, we had like a different kind of styles. They have Chicago style of writing, AP style of writing. I learned, for example, the AP way, which is what most news publications write in the US. So if you go on like the New York Times website or Washington Post website or New York Post website, you'll see that they're writing in AP style, which is a little different to the way we write here in the UK. But yeah, no, I mean, it was nothing that hindered my performance here. It's definitely something that I had to be conscious of and, you know, find my way with. But no, I would definitely say don't let that hold you back if you are considering studying abroad. I think if anything, it only enriches your experience, you know, seeing how journalism works outside of the UK. And yeah, I guess, you know, obviously every experience is going to come with its pitfalls, but you know, it's not going to be too bad in the end. So yeah.
And if people are kind of getting like if places aren't really sure, or hang on, how do I word this properly? So say someone who studied abroad is looking to apply for a job here, but the hiring manager isn't sure that they've got the right knowledge or experience. How would you kind of combat that and make sure that you're still sort of selling yourself in the best way and letting them know that, like, just because your degree is from another country, that doesn't mean it's not valid?
So you as the kind of the person applying for this job,
Yeah.
you mean? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's a good point. I think I would refer back to my writing samples. And when I was a student, I wrote for the, you know, university paper. And I think that's a great way to, you know, get involved and get experience from early on. I never really thought I would join, you know, the university paper, but it, you know, I'm so glad that it did happen, because I had something that I could show, you know, recruiters or employers or even internship recruiters, that saying, look, I have, this is the way I write, this is my writing style, I know it, you know, it has a similar tone of voice to your publication. And I think that's kind of the route you should go down if you did study abroad, and kind of just show, you know, let your work speak for itself, I would say.
Yeah, 100%. And like I've said it before, I'll say it again. Student media is such an underrated way of getting experience. I feel like some people kind of can maybe be a bit dismissive, but you're still gaining all of those skills. You're still, you know, building on your writing and all of that stuff. Do you have like a favorite piece that you worked on as part of your student media?
Yes, just a bit of a backstory to this. So I was a Division 1 student athlete in America. I used to play tennis professionally. So I kind of experienced firsthand, without bringing politics into this, but when, you know, when I went over there, Obama was president. And then when I was over there, Trump became president. And that I had, you know, firsthand impact on the visa restrictions that came with that. So, excuse me. So I did my student like journalism piece and thesis on kind of how Trump's presidency affected student athletes in the US. And that was like a really important piece that I'm still proud of to this day, just because it was investigative reporting, but it was also reporting from firsthand how it impacted me and affected me when I was out there. But yeah, I would say that is definitely something that I would still, you know, kind of be proud of to this day. And also just those student paper, or, you know, interviews that you do for the student paper rather, where you know, conduct interviews and so on. I think that's so important, because it really gets you out your comfort zone, especially as a student. You know, you get a bit timid and shy interviewing some stranger, but I think that's a great thing that, you know, when you get to it for a profession and a job eventually, you know, you'd be like, oh, this is easy, I've done this many times.
Exactly. I'm gonna just put out a last call for questions, but
yeah,
sort of on what you've just said, yeah, it's spot on. I remember the first work experience I ever did, I had to like call up a source for the first time, and I was properly scared. But it meant that when I got around to starting an actual paid job after I graduated, all the kind of mistakes and nervous things, and I'd already got that out of the way, so that when it came to like you know, people really valuing me for my work, it meant that I was less likely to make those mistakes because, you know, you've sort of done it all before.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. It's such a great way to get you out of your comfort zone, and I really can't recommend it enough. If you do have the chance, you know, if you're still at uni or still studying, absolutely get involved. And if, you know, it's not available to you, make your own opportunities, make your own, kind of like Chani did, you know, like she's, you know, being active and proactive and, you know, helping other journalists. And maybe, you know, you could do the same and, you know, volunteer a story, pitch stories to publications. You know, like I mentioned, in the UK, people get paid for stories left, right, and center. So, you know, if you have a great story in mind and you want to write it in your own time, you can always pitch it to either a magazine or a publication, you know, or an outlet, and, you know, you can get exposure that way.